Hey guys, welcome to today's video where we'll be doing the football season preview for the SMU Mustangs, who are playing their first season in the ACC this year. A lot of exciting things for SMU in their debut season. They have a lot of returning production, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. I think they will have one of the best receiving corps in the entire conference and really the entire country. But before I get into all of that, going into the departures that they had from last year, Jordan Miller and Devere Levelston from the defensive line are gone, and Branson Hickman and Marcus Bryant from the offensive line are gone. Not too many departures that concern me, but some linemen could be a big concern for depth, but nothing too glaring. Key rivals, though, you do have some edge Amari Abor from Ohio State, offensive tackle Savion Byrd from Oklahoma, defensive lineman Jonathan Jefferson from Georgia, wide receiver Ashton Cozart from Oregon, and defensive lineman Anthony Booker Jr. from Arkansas all come in, and particularly the linemen are going to be very helpful for that depth that I was talking about. Your top three running backs are all back. All had at least 400 yards of production. Quarterback Phil Stones returns. Had a very good year last year. As I said, your top four receivers return in what is going to be a very good receiving corps in the conference. I do have a little bit of defensive concerns with SMU with their front seven and linebackers, but their secondary does look very good for playing in a power conference this year. So strengths, I have scoring and offensive production, and then a possible weakness. I am very curious to see how the defense stacks up against the other teams' offenses in the country. But let's get into the schedule. You start off week 1 against Nevada. Nevada was one of the worst teams in college football last year. They went 2-10, struggled to win both of those games. I think you'll handle Nevada very easily, so I have you down for a win. Next, you play Houston Christian. I am not familiar with this team. I'm expecting you to handle them fairly easily. I'll have you down for another win there. And then you play BYU. BYU has been sort of an up-and-down program over the years where they can upset a team like Nebraska. And I know Nebraska is not necessarily a great team, but they can upset some power opponents. I think they also had an upset against Tennessee a few years ago. So definitely not a sleeper game. And obviously they're in the Big 12 now, so they're considered a power conference opponent. But I think you get the win. I and many others are not expecting BYU to be anything shocking this year, whereas you do have a lot of returning talent that has a lot of experience playing against teams like TCU and other power opponents. So I'm not too concerned about you tripping up against BYU. And then you have your bye week. And then you have your big out-of-conference rivalry game with TCU, the battle for the Iron Skillet. Bit of a rough stretch for SMU in this rivalry game. They've lost the last two meetings, I believe. Yes. Last year was a score of 34-17 loss to TCU. I think this year, though, you get them with all the returning talent that you have, and TCU sort of in a lull now with their program after 2 years after that national championship appearance. I think you finally get a win against them after a 2-year spell of trouble. And then you start conference play, and what a game to start conference play against Florida State, the reigning ACC champions. You play them at home, which does help, but if you've seen my Florida State season preview, you know I have this down as a loss for the Mustangs. Florida State, as a program right now, they're very well established with Mike Norvell. They have a good quarterback coming in to replace Jordan Travis. They have a lot of returning talent that had experience from that season last year. I think they have enough to get the win on the road, and you take your first loss of the season. Then you go at Louisville, which is also a very tough game because they were the conference runner-up, and that's two ranked teams in a row. And I think you also take a loss. Jeff Brom is a very experienced coach. He has a fairly good transfer quarterback coming in to replace Jack Plummer. And that defense is still going to be very, very solid for what they need to do to play complementary football, getting turnovers and getting stops. So I have you down for a loss. And then you have your second bye week. And then you go at Stanford. Stanford, not expected to be very good at all. I think you'll get a win easily. And then you go at Duke. Duke is a very interesting team this year with losing Elko to Texas A&M and hiring Manny Diaz, who he got fired from the University of Miami. He was the head coach there and did not do very well. But he went and became the defensive coordinator at Penn State and did a decent job. So this is his second attempt at the head coaching job. And he has some interesting pieces that he can work with Jordan Moore, and especially Malik Murphy coming in from Texas, a very talented quarterback that can do some damage, especially if he can link up with that receiving connection. So with that being said, going on the road at Duke, it's a long way to travel for SMU. There's a lot of talent still on that Duke team, even after everything that they lost through the transfer portal. I think you get upset by Duke. Then you play Pitt. Pitt, not expected to be very good. I think Pat Narduzzi is probably on his way out with his lack of production after that ACC championship with Pitt a few years ago. I expect you to get the win against Pitt. You're at home. Pitt, again, not expected to be very good. I think you'll win handily. Then you have your third bye week, and you play against Boston College, who, like Duke, is a very interesting team with Bill O'Brien coming in. And they still have Castellanos, and they have a very decent team, but on both sides of the ball that can create damage. We saw last year only a 2-point loss to the ACC champion. You are at home. It'll be a very close game. I think all of your losses will be fairly close within a 1 or 2 possession game. I don't really see you getting blown out by anybody. But I think Thomas Castellanos and the Eagles come in to Dallas and beat you. And then you go on the road at Virginia. Virginia, I've said in previous videos, I think they are on the right track with Tony Elliott. But Virginia is a long, long build, especially now with all the teams that are in the ACC. I think they will eventually get there if they have the patience. But, again, it's going to be a tough year for them. And if you look back at their year, they had some close games they could have won. And the games that they did win were also close. So it really could have been worse, could have been better. Sure, it could go either way. I think you win at Virginia in what will probably be a close game simply because it's on the road for you. And then you finish up the year against Cal. Cal, not expected to be very good. You have a lot of teams like that. Stanford, Cal, Virginia, Pitt. All not expected to be very good. I think you get a win against Cal. So I have you finishing with a record of 8-4 and a 4-4 conference record, which is a solid year for SMU in their first season in the ACC.